Sanford and Son. Sanford and Son started in 1972. It was a sitcom. Starred two Red Fox, Damon Wilson as Red Fox as Fred Sanford and Damon Wilson as Lamont. It's two. It's the show was about two junk men, and the show lasted 6 seasons, 136 episodes. It was a very successful sitcom in the 70s. You had Esther. Fred was always making fun of Esther. Then he had Grady. His best friend was Grady and Bubba, and it was a pretty good show. Red Fox was born. Red Fox actually was friends with the woman who played Esther, LaWanda Page. They were good friends. They grew up together, and he would always make fun of her because she wasn't always the prettiest. But the show did pretty good, and like I said, the show was kind of racist because there were episodes where uh, Fred Sanford made racial slurs, and he said Fred Sanford was racist towards other ethnic people, like Latinos and white people. He said the N word a couple times. It was like I said, it was a pretty big thing to hear African Americans use the N word on national television. Um, the show was taped in front of a live audience. The show was basically the struggles of an African American man and his son. His son was single. He was in his 30s. Lonely, no wife, no kids. He was dating, dating women, but he couldn't get a girl. He couldn't get a woman because he didn't. He lived with his father. He didn't have his own apartment. So it was hard for him to have a woman and have a relationship with a woman if he lives with his father. So every time he was on a date, he had to bring his date back to the house while his father was spying on them. His father was always in his business. Lamont was a grown man. He didn't cook his own food. Fred Sanford was always cooking Lamont's food. I found it weird that a 65-year-old man is cooking his 31-year-old son's food. I say, like, can't Lamont cook for himself? Um, Anyway, finally by the fifth or sixth season, Lamont is about 35, 36 years old, 37. He finally gets engaged. He meets a woman, and she has a son, and I think they get married. There was never a wedding episode. I would have liked to see Lamont get married. I think the last episode should have been Lamont gets married. We see a wedding episode where Lamont gets married and he moves out the house. I think a spinoff would have been nice to see Lamont and his wife and his son together. It probably wouldn't have lasted, but probably a couple episodes. But it would have been nice to see a spinoff of Lamont's life, as a married man. But when the show canceled, the show was renewed back in 1980 with Fred Sanford and a redneck white guy. Didn't last long. I think it lasted 26 episodes, 2 seasons, I think. Didn't last long. Red Fox's life didn't go too well after Sanford and Son ended. He did a couple of movies, couple of TV shows, here and there. He died in 19. He went bankrupt. He lost all his money. He spent most of his money on gambling, women, clothes, drugs, liquor. So he lived it up. He went bank. He married a couple. He cut. He was divorced. I think 3, 4 times. He couldn't keep a woman. He adopted a daughter. His adopted daughter guest starred on Sanford and Son. I think she was in one episode. He died in 1991 in front of people. He was pretending to have a heart attack, and he died in front of people. He did a TV show called Royal Palms, and he was like pretending to be having he pretended like he was having a heart attack. He put his hand over his chest, and he actually died in front of the whole crowd of people watching him. They thought he was joking. Then they realized he wasn't moving. They called the police, and he died at the hospital. And it's a pretty sad story that even on the Sanford Son, he was saying, I'm coming to join you, Elizabeth." You know, he actually died having a heart attack on the show, on the set of the show, the Royal Palms. Pretty sad story to his life. Mr. J here, peace.